The purpose of this training is to enhance teachers' knowledge of the shifts in teaching and learning that will be supported online through the State Department of Louisiana's Classroom Support Toolbox. To provide you with a little background information on the Teacher Leader Project, the Recovery School District will provide future professional development for this project through learning modules. So stay tuned and participate in the rollout of what teachers are participating in statewide. The learning objectives for this module are for teachers to internalize the standards, provide an explanation of the Common Core shifts in ELA and mathematics, gain a better understanding of assessments and its upcoming changes, and how to effectively set student learning targets. The Classroom Support Toolbox is located on the Louisiana Department of Education homepage. This toolbox provides a host of resources that will help teachers improve their professional practice within the classroom. The toolbox was created by teachers and district leaders around the state that wanted to assist with providing teachers with support that is aligned with Compass and Common Core. This slide presents the Teacher Support Toolbox resources and serves as a guide for what will be covered during the learning module. For this first learning module, we will examine the Set Goals tab and specifically take a look at the standards, end-of-year assessments, and student learning targets. We will now take a more in-depth look at the Common Core state standards. For the 2013-2014 school year, the Common Core standards will be in full use. We will no longer use the existing grade level expectations for ELA and math. The GLEs will only be used for social studies and science. The Common Core standards were developed in collaboration with teachers, school administrators, and experts from around the country. The reason for the development of the Common Core standards is to provide a clear and consistent framework to prepare our children for college and career readiness. In the past, Louisiana educators used grade level expectations to define what skills and knowledge a child should be expected to do each year. The grade level expectations were long, broad, and vague. We knew what we were supposed to teach, but not the level to which students were supposed to be able to understand and use certain skills. There were many GLEs to teach and not enough time to do so, but the Common Core standards are different. They require fewer standards to be addressed. However, the standards are clear, rigorous, and allow for deeper conceptual understanding for students. Next, we are going to quickly go over how to read the math and ELA standards. Remember, this will be a quick overview, and if you need additional information, refer to the Teacher Support Toolbox. To understand the math standards, let's begin with the domain. The domains are large groups of related standards. In this example, the domain is number and operations in base 10. Within that domain is a cluster of standards that is led by a header. Use place value understanding and properties of operations to perform multi-digit arithmetic. Then under the cluster header are the three standards within that cluster. Clusters are smaller groups of related standards. The standards define what students should understand and be able to do. The math standards are often referred to in code. Each part of the code is separated by a period. In this example, the coding reads Common Core State Standard Math Content. Math standard coding has 4 parts. Part 1 is grade level. Part 2 is the domain, Part 3 is the cluster, and Part 4 is the standard number. The grade level is 7th, the domain is NS, or number system, the cluster is A, first cluster, and the standard number is 3. There are 9 strand codes in the Common Core State Standards for ELA and literacy. They are found in the upper right-hand corner of each grade-specific standards page on the Common Core Standards website. There are 3 parts to a Common Core State Standard Code for ELA and literacy, and each part is separated by periods. The first part is the strand code, followed by the grade level, and then the standard number. In this example, the strand code is RI. RI stands for Reading Informational Text. The first 6 tells us that this is the 6th grade standard. The second 6 tells us that this is the 6th standard under this strand. Now I'm going to quickly go over some resources that are in the Teacher Support Toolbox to help you access and understand the standards. To get there, go to the Louisiana Believes website and access the Classroom Support Toolbox. There, under Standards, if you are an ELA teacher that wants to access the ELA and literacy standards, you can click the PDF or Word link. If you click How to Read, a course on how to understand the coding of ELA standards will come up. If you click on Changes, a PowerPoint will download that explains how and why the standards are different than our previous standards. Other subjects do not have Common Core standards at this time. You will continue to use Louisiana State Standards. However, for history, social studies, science, and tech studies, teachers there are Common Core standards for literacy, but literacy only. To access them, click on the Common Core State Standards. Under Access All Other Louisiana Standards. For history, social studies, science, tech studies, as well as foreign language, arts, health, and physical education, teachers, if you click on Louisiana State Standards, the Louisiana State Standards for your subjects will come up. But once again, there are not Common Core standards for your subjects yet, other than the literacy standards from the link above. Now we will take a look at the shifts occurring within English, language arts, and math as a result of the new Common Core State Standards. There are 3 major shifts in both ELA and math with Common Core State Standards. In ELA, students are first building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. Secondly, they are reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence from both literary text and informational nonfiction. And lastly, they will have regular practice with complex text and its academic language. In mathematics, the shifts are focus, coherence, and rigor. These shifts require students to focus their learning strongly where the standards focus. The standards stress coherence, which will require students to think across grade levels and link to major topics within grades. And lastly, rigor is increased in the major topics. ELA Shift 1 addresses building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. Students learning to read should exercise their ability to comprehend above grade level text through multiple read-alouds. Beginning in the 2nd grade, students should begin to consolidate their foundational skills and comprehension with more rigorous text. Within the Common Core State Standards, students' exposure to nonfiction and complex reading will be essential throughout the day. Reading aloud should be well above grade level in grades K through 5 and beyond. Think about it. We have spent most of our time up to this point teaching fictional reading selections. However, now for students to be prepared for college and career readiness, we must shift our reading selections to more nonfiction readings. The majority of reading in college and in the workplace is made up of informational nonfiction. With the shifts in the Common Core, the standards now require a 50-50 balance between informational and literary reading in grades K through 5 and a 70-30 split by high school. So remember to focus on informational nonfiction next year. ELA Shift 2 is reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence from the text, both literary and informational. The key word here is evidence. You will hear this word over and over when referring to how students should manipulate text. For example, in the past, we tended to only ask students how they thought a character felt, but now the standards will require students to support their answer with details from the text, not simply their opinions. When students cite the evidence, it displays a higher understanding of the topic. Strong readers and writers are able to locate and deploy evidence. That understanding is directly aligned to the next shift. The third ELA shift is regular practice, with complex text and its academic language. This simply means exposing our students to challenging and robust opportunities to grapple with rigorous vocabulary development. Based on an ACT study, the greatest predictor of student success in college is what students can read in terms of complexity. Right now, the gap between the complexity of college text and high school text is immense. Common Core standards include a staircase of increasingly complex text from elementary through high school. These standards are crucial in building general academic vocabulary that is very critical to comprehension. The standards require that students read appropriately complex text at each grade level independently, which is Standard 10 in the Common Core standards across all grade levels. The first math shift is for educators to focus strongly where the standards focus. Rather than rushing to cover the long list of grade level indicators, teachers will now significantly narrow and deepen the way time and energy is spent in math. The focus now is to deepen the major work of each grade so students can gain a strong foundation of conceptual understanding, fluency, and ability to apply the math to solve problems both in and outside of the classroom. The second shift in math is coherence. Students should think across grades and link their thinking to major topics within grades. The Common Core is designed around coherent progressions from grade to grade. Now we must connect the learning across grades so that students can build upon new understandings of foundations from previous years. In Common Core, each standard is not a new topic, but should be an extension of what was previously learned. The third shift in math is rigor in the major topics of conceptual understanding, fluency, and application. With conceptual understanding, teachers support students' ability to access concepts from a number of perspectives so that students are able to see math as more than just a set of discrete procedures. Students will have a deeper understanding of numbers and how they can be manipulated to solve relevant real-life problems. The standards require procedural skill and fluency and call for speed and accuracy in calculation. Teachers will now structure class and homework time to allow time for students to practice core functions so that students have access to more complex concepts and procedures. Math application now calls for teachers to use math flexibly and rigorously. Teachers provide opportunities for students to apply math in context. Teachers in content areas outside of math, particularly science, ensure that students are using math to make meaning and access content. So remember, fluency and application is key. When thinking about the shifts for mathematics and Common Core, it is important to become familiar with the priorities that support conceptual understanding and fluency. In the elementary grades, concepts, skills, and problem solving should be the focus when teaching addition and subtraction in grades kindergarten through second, and multiplication and division in third through fifth grades. In middle school, grades 6th and 7th, the focus shifts to ratios and proportional relationships. In 6th grade, early expressions and equations are the focus. Moving into 7th grade, the focus shifts to arithmetic and rational numbers in connection with ratios and proportional relationships. Students in 8th grade will focus on linear algebra as their major focus with Common Core. Now we will take a look at the end-of-year assessments that will measure student achievement. As a teacher, it is crucial that you understand key shifts that will occur in statewide assessments for the 2013-2014 school years. Some of the key changes that will occur during this transitional year are as follows. The questions on assessments will be fully aligned to the Common Core state standards for ELA and math. As previously discussed, GLEs will no longer be tested. Secondly, the test will assess students on a more rigorous level than previous tests. This will prepare students to take the PARCC test in 2014-2015 school years. Finally, there will be changes in the format of tests. Changes will vary based on subject and grade level. More information on this will be made available in future training modules. In order for teachers to ensure their students are prepared for transitional assessments, there are some key steps teachers may take. Begin by identifying the assessment your students will take at the end of the year. Use the assessment guide to familiarize yourself with the structure and content of that assessment. Finally, you can build understanding of strong student performance by looking at sample student answers. The following resources will help you to understand key changes in structure and content of assessments for the 2013-2014 school year. Assessment guides are valuable resources because they identify specific standards that will be tested and in what proportion for math and ELA. Another resource that will help guide you during this transitional time are sample questions. Examples of the types of questions that will be included can be found in the Teacher Toolbox. Within the toolbox, you can also access documents showing the progression of difficulty. This will help you to recognize the increased level of rigor. Student work samples can be viewed by clicking on the link below. This will help you to understand how students can achieve exemplary responses to questions which are aligned to the Common Core standards. After teachers develop a clear understanding of what students will be expected to do on the end-of-year assessments, teachers should tailor specific student learning targets to the appropriate grade level, content area, and student academic starting points. Once again, to access best practices information about student learning targets, you start by visiting the Classroom Support Toolbox located on the Louisiana Believes homepage. This will take you to the page for Louisiana's Plan for Student Achievement. On this page, you should click on the Teacher Support Toolbox. With the Teacher Support Toolbox open, click on Student Learning Targets link to access the information page. On this page, please bring your attention to the 4 bulleted resources that are currently available for student learning targets. These include a Compass guidebook, a template for planning student learning targets, and a sample SLTs link. When you click on the sample SLTs link, it takes you to this page. On this page, guidance on planning and the goal setting process is provided in the form of examples of SLTs written for a variety of content areas. Each is a file available for download. So now that you know your way around the website, what exactly is a student learning target? A student learning target is basically just a measurable goal that you will have for your students' achievement over a given period of time. Strong SLTs share 3 key characteristics, which are, number 1, priority content, which focuses on learning content that is aligned to the Common Core state standards. Number 2, rigor, which represents an appropriate amount of student learning that is challenging yet attainable for the specified amount of instructional time that the students will spend with the teacher. Number 3, high quality evidence, which is simply a common assessment that meets specified criteria that provides student achievement data from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So what does the SLT process look like? At the beginning of the school year, teachers will set at least 2 student learning targets and define what performance will look like at each level of effectiveness. The teacher will confer with their evaluator. This is usually a member of their school's administration, to agree on the targets based on the 3 previous criteria that we have just covered. In the middle of the year, teachers and evaluators will monitor the students' progress toward the targets. Also, teachers may update their SLTs if the student population changes significantly. Finally, at the end of the year, evaluators will assign teachers a final rating based on the student's progress towards the target by using the agreed-upon definitions of effectiveness from the beginning of the school year. This approach to measuring growth was chosen because research shows that setting high expectations for students has a positive impact on their achievement. In addition, student learning targets can be employed in a wide variety of content areas and represent sound instructional practice for all teachers. There are 4 steps involved in writing strong student learning targets. The first step is to define the content. This involves determining the most important concepts in your course and aligning these concepts to the Common Core standards. The second step is to identify the assessment measure for the student learning target. Teachers should refer to the Louisiana Department of Education's Common Assessment List, located by clicking on the sample SLT link previously mentioned in this module. The third step is to identify the student group for the SLT. SLTs should be set for either an entire class or subgroup of students. Teachers should try to include the majority of their students across all of their SLTs. The fourth and final step is to set the expectation for growth and provide a rationale. Teachers should take baseline data into account to set a goal that is challenging but attainable for the students. The teacher and the evaluator must agree upon a scoring plan after setting the student learning target. Each of the 4 steps involved in writing strong SLTs is illustrated here. For step 1, the teacher defined the content by identifying specific GLEs that weigh significantly more than others for the English 2 end-of-course exam. Teachers, remember, however, that next year the content must be defined using Common Core state standards and not GLEs. The teacher obviously identified the English 2 end-of-course assessment as the measure to be utilized to measure student growth. The teacher then identified that the student group would be the entire group of 90 students being taught. Finally, the SLT reads as follows. At least 63 of 90 students, which is 70%, will attain a score of good or excellent on the English 2 end-of-course assessment. The rationale for the SLT is based on an EAGLE pretest administered to the students in which 58% of the students correctly answered half or more of the questions. Finally, by accessing the links below, you can access self-paced learning modules on how to read the Common Core state standards. Also, you can view sample writing prompt rubrics. This will help you to understand key shifts in writing prompts and expectations for student responses. For any questions regarding the information presented in this learning module, please contact the RSD Teacher Leadership Group at 225-239-7500, extension 1209.